Look, podcasting opened so many doors for me that I always say starting a podcast was the best thing I ever did in my life, both professionally and personally.
Best thing you ever did?
Vuk Zlatarov, podcasting disruptor and entrepreneur, co-founder of Poddster, Dubai's #1 podcast studio network, revealing why podcasting is the ultimate tool for building business relationships in 2025, on a mission to revolutionize content creation and transform conversations into powerful business tools.
The first time I walked into a studio, I remember I saw the lights, I got scared, the microphone, they're intimidating. I thought to myself, what am I going to say that's going to sound interesting to someone else? What do I have? What is this knowledge that I have? What if I sound stupid? Before you started podcasting, you tried many other businesses and failed. Can you tell me about the biggest failure that you had and what you learned from it?
We had a lot of businesses that we closed, startup ideas that didn't see the day of life. We launched it. We had 40,000 subscribers in Balkans where we started. Had a very nice takeoff, but it was on the back of marketing budgets that we were fueling in, and we couldn't raise more funds fast enough. Cash burn, lesson learned. We invested way too much time, energy, and money to build something, and we miscalculated how much marketing funds we would need to continue scaling something like that.
In my experience, I realized there were a lot of nights where I had those sleepless nights. I couldn't sleep, me and my co-founder, because we had a problem. And at the same time, we didn't have cash. And I think a bad night or day and not enough cash to pay your salaries, things that happen in a normal business, when you don't have, if it's not your idea, you're more likely to press exit and jump out of the plane. I was once in a meeting with a guy, well, he was actually a business leader. He said, podcasting is a waste of time.
Someone was commenting that podcasting is not for everyone. That's what I thought as well. The podcasting is not for me.
Not for your industry.
3-4 years ago, I would never say that podcasting is something that I should do or I would like to do. It turned out to be the best thing that I ever did in my life.
A few years ago, I was sitting across the table with an investor. I went to meet him so I could get money for my startup many years back. While I was sitting with the investor, he leaned back, he crossed his arms, very closed off, and he said to me, I've heard that before. Tell me something I don't know. That's when I realized storytelling is not about being cool. It's about surviving now. So you started podcasting to meet influential people. Tell me, what was the most surprising guest that you met through your podcasting? Like an unexpected door that opened for you.
Look, podcasting opened so many doors for me that I always say starting a podcast was the best thing I ever did in my life, both professionally and personally.
Best thing you ever did?
By far. When you look at the scale of impact that podcasting had on my life, both personally and professionally. Now, when I look around myself, most of people that I'm surrounded with in Dubai, especially, are directly or indirectly a result of me hosting that show for a few years.
So interesting that you say that.
Absolutely, yeah. So great friends, business partners, investors, the network, you know how they say, the usual one, the network is your net worth.
The network is your net worth. Yes, I've heard that.
And podcasting was really one of the easiest and most convenient and natural ways for me to build that, what I call the ideal network, right? When you start and you design what would be your ideal network for what you want to become in life, whether personally or professionally. And you sketch it out and you say, okay, I want to be surrounded with people who have these values, who do this in life, who spend time doing certain things. And you really map out all of the people that you would like to have around you. You start to show and start building that network. And it worked really well. The impact that it had and the scale that it reached, I could never guess it would bring me to this stage now in my life.
Wow. So many interesting people on your podcast, you said, from your journey. What was the one that was unexpected that you met?
So, for example, I met a good friend of mine now, Paul Marsh.
Paul Marsh, if you're listening.
Yeah, he's going to be happy one day when he hears the episode telling this story. He came basically as a companion to the person that I was actually interviewing. He was sitting in the back of the room, observing and just listening silently our video episode recording. And then at the end of the session we met, and then I realized that he worked on some of the biggest projects in the world in the industry of energy, sustainability, etc. Worked on multi-billion dollars project. Amazing guy as a person, as an individual, now as a friend, just an amazing character. And these are people, this is actually describing or giving you an idea of the brilliance of hosting a show. This was not even a person that I was looking to meet.
No, it was some extra.
This was a person that came as a company to a
yeah
person that I was interviewing, and we ended up becoming friends and working together and really having him in my life now, which is amazing. And this is just one example. There is another example where I connected with a person to start to record an episode. We eventually never recorded that episode, but we started the business together.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it is the way to meet businessmen.
It's absolutely the way to meet, not necessarily businessmen, anyone that you believe is someone that you would like to connect with, whether that's a football coach for your football career or HR recruiter or a recruiter for your business career or a businessman for your next business venture. It can be really anyone.
Vuk, you came to Dubai in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you say that you never thought that you'd be into podcasting. Yet today you own biggest chain of podcast studios in the UAE. What was that journey like for you? And, was there a point where you thought, maybe I should do something else?
Well, I mean, the whole obviously podcast studio journey is rapid. It happened over the last two and a half, maybe 3 years. I came here in 2014 and started my first business with a business partner of mine, which was a software development company. This was straight out of college. We didn't know much, I like to say, or to picture that image of two of us walking around Dubai, tucked shirts, a suitcase, walking around trying to sell websites, and it was fun. I mean, we learned a lot.
You were selling what?
Websites, mobile applications, software development in general. But I saw ourselves as traveling salesmen. We were going around on 45 degrees,
it's really hot.
suit up because we thought people are expecting from us to be suit up in order to sell something.
Yeah.
And then at one point someone told us at a meeting, guys, you're selling websites, like why are you all so serious? Like, people don't expect from you to be suit up. And
exactly
and that went for a while, and throughout that whole journey of building creative that company, we were really, it was more about learning about business and how business works than necessarily building a company, although we were obviously trying to build a massive company and we had big plans. We went international. We were operating in Singapore, Dubai, Europe.
Software company.
So it was primarily a software development company that had a few different verticals. It had a venture building studio. We were advising accelerators, other venture building studios and so on. But the service model, agency model, that was sort of challenging to scale.
Service-based is basically exchanging your hours for money.
Exactly.
For the person that doesn't.
For as long as you are kept with those hours, the scale of that business is challenging.
Exactly. If you add a certain number of customers after a certain point, then you need to add more hours, which you don't have.
You need to keep expanding, yeah.
Exactly.
And you are always in pursuit of new projects, right? It's project-based, so the issue is not necessarily that it's only a service, but it's also combined with relatively short-term projects.
Yeah.
So every time a 6 months project would end, you would have to chase another project so that you can pay the bills. And this was always putting you in unpredictability and cash flow issues.
Exactly. Look, for me, the first time I walked into a studio, I remember I saw the lights, I got scared, the microphone, they're intimidating. I thought to myself, what am I going to say that's going to sound interesting to someone else? What do I have? What is this knowledge that I have? What if I sound stupid? It's almost like an imposter syndrome inside of me. You came from Serbia in 2014. You now have this chain of studios.
Still feel like that, man.
You still feel like that? Are you feeling like that now?
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends from person to person. I'm always on the rarely do I get into the first plan and try to expose myself too much, and I always think that I'm not that I didn't build enough, or that what I did isn't a success necessarily, or so I'm always putting bigger goals in front of myself, and this is making me always feel that I didn't actually accomplish certain things, which is, there is a good side and there is a bad side. A good side is that this is always pushing you forward, but the bad side is that you're not getting enough kick, self-confidence out of it, because you're always sort of not admitting to yourself that you achieved certain things.
Yeah, I get that. So I have a thing, I think usually it also depends on what it is that intimidates you. Is it a different guest that intimidates you? Is it a topic that you don't know? What do you find very intimidating? You said each time you have an episode, it's intimidating all over again. But
so I always say that being a guest is a lot easier than being a host.
Exactly.
Now being in the studio and that I'm not in your chair, I'm as comfortable as I can be. Right. This is beautiful. You're asking me questions. I'm the smart one in the room. I am the guest. And
I think you're smart regardless.
Look, this is easy. Because you're just delivering your story, nothing else. Right. For me, being a host is the challenging part, because it is host's responsibility to help the guest give its best performance, right?
But when you have a guest like you,
thank you. It's very humbling.
It makes it easier.
It makes it easier when someone is coming from the industry, right? Because I know the dynamic. But what we teach in our academy and in master classes is we're trying to explain hosts that they can help the guest give the best performance. Not everyone was born for this. Someone is doing this for the first time, etc. Everyone has a story to share, right? You know that,
right?
But it's about getting that story out,
right?
And unless you get into that flow and you warm up the guest as you did now with me, it's very difficult to get into that peak performance storytelling mode that everyone can deliver. That's why I always felt in the host seat, especially if I would have someone that I don't know from before, I would feel that pressure and responsibility towards the episode, that it's in my control to make the episode engaging, which is also, something that works against you. If your awareness of that is too high, then you can also struggle to get into the pace of the episode itself.
I completely agree with you. I'm sitting in the host seat and I can feel exactly what you're saying. But I think it also depends on your guest, right?
Absolutely.
The higher quality of guest you get, quality in the sense of a better storyteller, the more they know their story, then it becomes easier to basically get that story out of them. It's, I think, a more challenging thing to interview someone who's the first time on a podcast, because they might be more aware about the things around them as opposed to just being in their zone, talking about their experiences and answering the questions. They might be worried about, something around them. I completely,
100%.
Yeah. You said that before you started podcasting, you tried many other businesses and failed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about the biggest failure that you had and what you learned from it?
So we had, look, calling these things failures is also tricky, both on psyche level, on individual level, and in general context. I will give you a sort of a parallel story. So on the back of our software development business, at one point we realized, look, if we continue selling the service and man hours, and we keep producing value for our customers while not charging for the value that is being produced, but just charging for the hours, we're never going to scale this business. So at one point we explored the model of venture building. Venture building basically works. There are several different models, obviously. One of the models is that you offer your services partially for financial compensation, partially for shares in that company. So we said, look, we think we know how to build a successful software. Why don't we find people who have good ideas and have domain expertise, who don't necessarily have software expertise? We help them build the software. We take a bit of shares, and then we exit the business when the time comes and make a much bigger multiple
And this was after you already got to the time where you had the hours full. So you were making enough cash as a business. You now wanted to take equity in those companies by offering...
we could afford. We could afford to
exactly.
to do something like that, which is a difficult place to reach at the same time.
Yes.
So in the conversations that we had with some of these founders, we would get a question, okay, how many companies did you exit so far? How many unicorns did you build?
Oh, yes.
Which is a tough one, right? Which comes as maybe a normal question to ask. And then first time we were struck by a question and we didn't know what to answer. And we were like, okay, we didn't build anything. Maybe we're not worth it. But then the next time they asked me, I told them, look, we haven't built any companies so far that scaled, that are unicorns. We didn't exit any of these businesses. But we made a lot of mistakes. And I know at least 100 things that you shouldn't do.
That's a humble thing and smart thing to say.
And this is the reality. I think that building businesses is a journey and a school that lasts for your whole life. And every business that you build, whether you manage to sell it, which is an eventual sign that you build a successful business or that someone is willing to purchase it, or you shut it down, it was a valuable lesson, and that learnings you will implement into your next venture.
100%.
So in that sense, we had a lot of businesses that we closed, startup ideas that didn't see the day of life.
What was an idea you thought for sure was going to work, and then you were like, no?
We had one idea that was very close to a success. We had a lot of early traction, but then we didn't have enough funds to keep fueling marketing efforts. Basically, it was a surveying app, a voting app, where you could anonymously post 4 different photos on the app. So let's say you have 4 selfies. You post 4 selfies to an anonymous public. They vote for the best one. This is on a personal level. You can do it for brand testing as well, for different products, and then the others are voting for which product they like the most. By voting, you're getting credits that you can use to publish your own polling system. Interesting concept that could be used in multiple different scenarios. We launched it. We had 40,000 subscribers in Balkans where we started. Had a very nice takeoff, but it was on the back of marketing budgets that we were fueling in, and we couldn't raise more funds fast enough.
Cash burn.
Cash burn, lesson learned. We invested way too much time, energy, and money to build something, and we miscalculated how much marketing funds we would need to continue scaling something like that. Now I know that before you find that product market fit, then you're certain that the product that you will be building has its audience. Investing a lot in engineering and building something is a waste of time. Plus, you need to calculate how much money you need later on to scale that.
Exactly. Vuk, when I'm listening to you, what I think what I like about what you've done is you had a model where you had a running software business. Your software business, you capped it. You got to the time where you were selling the maximum number of hours and you were getting paid, and you could afford to make mistakes on the side as side hustles and move away from a service-based and more into you have a base where you can do investments, take equity in that company, or maybe take more cash, right? But you wanted to play the equity game. How did you solve that problem then?
We didn't solve it. I don't believe in, and after 2 or 3 years doing it, running a venture building studio, I stopped believing in a model in itself.
You don't think it works?
It doesn't work.
Why doesn't it work?
At this stage, I'm certain it doesn't work. Because it's all about the founder. No matter how much work you put in, no matter how much knowledge and expertise you put into the software, if the founder is not right, nothing is going to happen. So you have a few venture building models, right? There is a model where you work on the ideas, develop something, and then you look for the founder who is going to take it forward.
As a software company.
Whether it's a software in any business, really. You can have a hub that is, manufacturing ideas and concepts,
right.
Doing the proof of concept, product market fit, launching, and then looking for the founder who is going to scale it.
Exactly.
Or you can look for the founders with great ideas and support them.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's how well you can recognize the quality in the founder, and nobody can do that. There is no formula for that. Only from the volume and the experience you can make a qualified bet But at the end of the day, it's the bet on the founder.
But between the two, which is the one that would give you a higher value bet? Better odds.
I think looking for the founders with ideas rather than creating yourself and then looking for the founder who's going to take it further, because they own the idea. They're bought in.
100%. You know, I ran a startup called Under 500. It was a healthy food startup. We took it. We started as a healthy food brand in Dubai, and we took it to 6 countries, and eventually sold it to a unicorn called Kitopi. And in my experience, I realized there were a lot of nights where I had those sleepless nights. I couldn't sleep, me and my co-founder, because we had a problem, and at the same time, we didn't have cash. And I think a bad night or day and not enough cash to pay your salaries, things that happen in a normal business, when you don't have, if it's not your idea, you're more likely to press exit and jump out of the plane.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes back to, like, you know, the answer you said about it being the founder's idea. If it's the founder's idea, they're not going to quit. It's still their idea, even with money, without money, with that big problem. And that's kind of how I see it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would just add one more thing to it. They need to be invested in it. Just owning an idea is also not enough.
Of course.
They need to have some sort of skin in the game, whether that's money, whether that's reputation, whether that's real estate. Unless they have something as a skin in the game, it's going to be way easy for them to walk away from it when it's tough.
So I was once sitting with a startup founder that came to me with a really smart idea. When I got to know the founder and looking into them, I asked them, what is your experience? And they said they started selling CDs at the age of 12 on the streets of Cairo. And they said that a lot of their business experience that they got later was from the hard negotiations they had at the age of 12 selling those CDs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And that's when, for me, it came as a realization that who we are today is a lot to do with our childhood and the experiences we went through. You were in Serbia and you were a professional athlete rowing. How did that, and then you had an accident. Tell me about the accident and how that shaped you for your future entrepreneurship, and how did it fix your resilience? Like, what did that change in you?
Yeah, it's interesting chapter of my life. So I was rowing professionally in Serbia before university, and that was my life. Right, you would go to a practice, you would go back to school, and my future was in rowing and studying abroad. So
this was in Serbia, and then you wanted to study.
This was in Serbia. I was looking to study in the States, and for me that was really a dream, getting a scholarship in one of the Ivy League universities in the States, finishing my studies there. And then most of my role models at the time were professional rowers who did the same. But then one morning, as it happens in life, I was cycling to my practice, and I had a bad accident on my bicycle, broke my back.
Oof.
That put me in the bed for a few months.
A few months?
Yeah, I was literally stuck to a bed for a few months.
And how did you feel? Like, this is your whole career.
It was shocking. I mean, the moment when the doctor comes into the room and says what happened and what's your state, and that you most likely will have to, walk away from something that you've been doing for. At that stage, it seems like you've been doing it for the whole life. I mean, you can just imagine all of your plans collapse. So it was a tough few nights.
And what did you do at university?
At the time, obviously, you believe that you will come back, that you will push through something like that. So I remember I kept talking to all of these trainers in the States, because the whole usual process is you keep talking to your coaches in the States, building up your profile, and then when a time comes, you're looking for scholarship.
Right.
So on daily basis, you're speaking to all of them, and they ask you, what did you do today? What was the workout to keep the relationship and so on. So I remember I'm stuck in the bed, like not moving, and I told I rode 20 kilometers today, and I ran and I went to the gym because I was trying to keep and save the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then 1 month in, I gave up on that whole idea. Got back on my feet after 3-4 months, started practicing again slowly, but at that point the break was already took its own toll. The whole atmosphere and the way how that system is structured in Serbia and that club wasn't really supportive. And at that age, I was 18, 19. It's very easy to walk away from something. But on a hindsight, that took me on a completely different journey. I enrolled to a local university, met some of the great people that later on came to Dubai. And then Dubai changed my life. So the point of this story probably is that you never know. Sometimes the worst thing that happened in your life are actually just the beginning of something great. At the time, it looked like the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah. Looking back, you're saying it gave you the opportunity to go to a normal university, not the one with the scholarship, and then you came to Dubai, right?
And the funny thing is that I now work with a lot of people who studied in the States, and some of them work in my companies.
Wow.
I'm very close to a lot of them. We might be setting up a new club. So things connected later on again. But at that point, you think,
That's it.
how is my life going to continue, right?
Yeah, the thing you're most passionate about kind of falls apart, right? But what did that teach you about resilience?
I mean, look, that sport overall taught me that when you think it's tough, when you think that you cannot do it anymore, you can continue doing it for 10 more times. This is one of those sports that you feel you can't do it anymore after 2 minutes in the race, and you need to continue for another 5, 6. So there are a lot of programs these days around the world that are teaching you that you can do 20 times more than you think you can. When your body is saying, I can't do this anymore, actually
that's just a mental thing. It's not the body speaking. Yeah.
So whether because of rowing or just because how I was brought up, or I'm not really sure what's the reason, but I have that attitude that I can sit and work like crazy for months.
Like
until
you can push your mental barrier.
Yeah,
I meet so many interesting people, Vuk, that they were athletes and then become entrepreneurs. Do you think there's like a similar mental?
I think there is something to it. Yeah.
Really?
I think there is something to it. Well, look, athletes, if you reach a certain professional level where you need to do that every day, it does teach you a lot about discipline, coming to work every day, working hard. And this translates later on to business, similar like military.
Right.
You can see a lot of examples around the world of successful entrepreneurs and business people who are in the military. I think this discipline is something that definitely maybe newer generations are missing, and they need to be pushed harder. Now, for example, when I'm working on new businesses, I'm actually looking for rowers. I'm actually looking for rowers because I know they're mentally tough. I know these guys they work hard.
And it's cold in Serbia,
most of them are studying abroad, so they're well educated. So
smart. So the rowers are getting funded and they're studying abroad. So they'll be smart, they'll be hardworking and resilient, like you.
Very good profile, yeah.
Wow. So like you asked them in the interview, what do you do for a sport?
I know them from before. Obviously, the network is big, so I'm slowly getting them all inside.
Wow. That's such a nice way to support the thing that you were so passionate about. I can imagine. I've been to Serbia a few times now, and it's cold there, and you gotta be. I mean, I think Serbians are tough. They walk everywhere. It's not like Dubai where you have public. It's people there are fit. They're
It can be.
The weather allows you to walk. Here, it's a bit hot, but look back to your rowing incident. We spoke about the resilience that that shaped you after the incident, but I'm more interested also to know about the entrepreneurship part. So how did you become an entrepreneur? Are your parents entrepreneurs?
No, my parents are not entrepreneurs. To be honest, I'm not really sure what made me go down this path. Very early in those college days, before I even knew what am I going to do in life, I started making my own dollars here and there. Right?
How did you make money? That's so interesting to know. Like your first money.
My first money was in organizing these student parties, trips, travels, and so on. So I was attending a university in Serbia that is relatively large. A lot of people who are spending a lot of time together. So we were working in that whole space, and then trying to have fun and make some dollars. Then I went to States for a work and travel program. This was my first big money. Okay. I mean, relatively big. Actually, it took me a while after that point to make more money that I made.
So what were you selling to start before you went on the trip? So you were at the party, you were selling tickets for people to get in?
Yeah, it was tickets. Yeah, you organize a whole travel to Europe, and then hotels, travel arrangements.
And you go with them?
and you go with them.
Amazing.
So you have fun, you make some dollars. And
you have fun, you make. So then the big one was going to the States.
The big one was going to the States, and this was not entrepreneurial, to be honest. So I had a job over there. But even at that point, I realized that I obviously enjoy working more on my own. My first job was in the kitchen. So I was working as a dishwasher.
No way. Was that like a summer job? Or?
Summer job, but it was paid well. So you make $100 in a day, which is not bad money at the time. But 2 weeks in, I just felt like this is not what I'm, made to do. Yeah. And I need more freedom. And I wasn't really enjoying that authority. I guess it was more about getting paid. Yeah. I was looking to make as much money as possible in that short window of time.
You need to,
So I hustled my way into a taxi company. And I started driving taxi on that island.
After the dishwashing?
After the dishwasher job. And I was on my own. I had my own car, so I felt comfortable.
Come on, that's amazing.
So that was fun. And that's when I made money that I later on invested actually in setting up a company in Dubai.
Wow.
So the money that helped me start in Dubai, when I joined with my friends who invited me to join them, I said, okay, why don't I invest in the company and cover the expenses of a setup, and I become a partner. And that's how actually my Dubai journey started. So it was fueled by the hustle money that I made in the States.
That's just an amazing story. And you had a co-founder with you also, right?
I had a few co-founders. So at the beginning of our company in Dubai, there was 6 of us, I think. 6, if not 7. 6. Yeah, 6 of us. And that was also a great learning curve.
Do you think everyone needs a co-founder before they start a company, or do you think it's better on your own?
I don't think there is a better way, but I also don't think that everyone needs a co-founder. It's definitely easier to share everything with someone. Especially stress and hard times. If you're on your own, it can be devastating. I cannot actually even imagine how is it when you're on your own, because I always had a partner. But I also learned a few things about partnerships over the years. Partnerships are tough to maintain and to manage.
Completely agree.
So you really need to select carefully who are you dating, and you need to set up that partnership in a framework that will allow you to operate together.
Exactly.
So at one point when you actually, start growing, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult, especially in tough times. There were 6 of us, and then 5, and then 4, and then 3, and then eventually 2 of us stayed. At some point, we were not friends, but then we ended up all being friends again.
That's a good thing. How long was all this straining out?
I think it was in total. So we started in 2014. We finished the business in 2024.
Okay.
So it lasts for a decade. And as a friend of mine would say, okay, that was your elementary school in business. Yeah. Now you progress to high school. Poddster now is a high school. Yeah. Then something else will be university, and eventually you may become to
last man
PhD.
Standing. You got last man standing. You got 2 guys, and usually I think too many learnings from the story of yours. What is the main learning about having a partner in your business that you learned with this decade of experience with co-founders?
I'm not sure what could be the main learning, but overall what I learned about partnerships is that a 50-50 partnership rarely exists or works. It can be 51.7, 49.48.3. It can be 64 and 36. 50-50 is just a theory. 50-50, it's very difficult to maintain 50-50 over a course of a long time without one side giving usually significantly more than the other, and the other side sort of, which is just introducing a lot of friction at a certain point, because there are no bad intentions necessarily. It's just points of views, seeing things differently. So there are partnerships that are 50-50 that survived, but these are usually partnerships that were built in the first few years, built a system that works, and then maintained as just the owners of companies. So that's what I learned. So that was the case with our first business, 6, 7 of us. It's impossible the 7 of you are putting in the same effort, right? There is always someone giving it more or
and it's
or
a
less,
feeling you
or-
get, right? Someone does more and then you start feeling like you did less. And how do
and
you
that's a
counter
key
that?
word that you said, feeling. If you run your business based on feelings, it's not going to be a good business. It has to do with how you manage your partnerships, shareholders, your employees. If you feel that your employee is not delivering enough and you keep coming to the office and you feel that some person is not working enough, that's your problem.
So you're saying you don't trust you shouldn't go with your gut feeling then.
Because if you don't measure them and if they don't have something precisely to do that can be measured, you're always going to feel something. So same for partnerships. Unless you translate your equity into something that is measurable, the feeling will always kick in. And you don't know when it's going to kick in and from which side. Both sides can bring it up.
It's so interesting. You're saying 50-50 doesn't work. One needs to have 51, so a more dominant say. So if there's, not sure which way it's going to go, one person needs to be the decider, whether
it's more about over the course of, say, 3 years that you're going to be building that business. It's impossible that, theoretically, it's impossible that both of you invest 50% of your everything, money, energy, time.
Exactly.
Someone will be working 12 hours a day, someone will be working 4. Someone will put 200,000, someone will put 100.
Yeah.
It's that balance is difficult without one side sort of accepting.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by 50-50 it's theoretically impossible that like
I was checking I was checking the stats and it's pretty alarming. For the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US, the biggest ones by market cap, only 4% have single founders. Most of them have, most of them have co-founders. So, I want to bring this conversation back to podcasting. And, you said in previous interviews that you started podcasting as a way to meet interesting people, potential clients. When did you figure out that podcasting was the business?
It was out of a pure need. So we were sitting around the table. My co-founder, Ivan, and he was running his media business. I was running my software business. And we both struggled to run campaigns that would bring qualified leads to our pipeline and that would help us close more business. And I was thinking about starting an email campaign. And I remember I was trying to figure out how to put together that email body that is not going to sound salesy, no matter what you write. Because at the end of the day, you are selling them. It sounds sales.
It's the truth.
And I was going in loops and in loops and in loops.
Did you do like a copywriting class or?
No, I mean, I was like, I know how to write, but it takes me an enormous amount of time. And then I lose myself. And then I spend like 8 hours trying to write that email, literally. And I just couldn't get it right. And at that point, the idea came that we could start a podcast. And instead of inviting people or offering people our services, we want them on our show. They come on our show, and after that we take the conversation naturally towards business side and exchange ideas and see if we can help each other, and that was the beginning. And
when was this? Which year?
I think it's around 2021
in
the beginning. So it's funny. So my co-founder Ivan, he is the creative guy, a bit more on the creative side and more on organization side. So he started, and he is the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show in Serbia.
So he has his own show. He's into media.
He is a professional. Like he is one of the top celebrities.
He got you into the podcasting thing?
He got me into the podcasting thing. So we said we're going to start the show, and I told him, man, you can be the host. I'm going to observe from the side.
Right.
Now, because he's on the creative side and he's lacking a little bit this organizational side, the way how he was doing it was a bit all over the place for someone who is OCD like me.
Yeah. So he started in the front.
Yeah, he started in the front. And then we did around 7 or 8 episodes, but because we were missing that whole system that is going to, maintain the show life.
Right.
The show is a lot of work, as you know. Making it happen all the time and getting the guests and preparing it's a lot of work. So at one point we slowed down, and then we made a break of around 6 months maybe. And then I said, okay, I think I want to do it. But the only way I'm going to do it is if I organize everything and I know exactly what's going to happen all the time, and I'm a total control freak.
Yeah.
So I build this whole CRM, 40 different steps, preparation,
but first,
search.
Important before it, you build your spirit. It's not easy to come in the front, right?
It's not, but listen to this part. I wanted to start a show, but then I was desperately looking again who is going to host the show because I didn't want to get in front of the cameras.
Right.
And use my system to run the show. So I was like, okay, I'm going to build a system. I'm going to bring someone in.
Yeah.
And I had my business development manager. I was like, perfect. He's going to be on the show. Yeah. We're going to invite people that we need. They're going to do the show. And then I'm going to meet the guest.
On the back.
As a business owner, I'm going to close business. Perfect. I don't know what happened now. I need to ask him actually to remind me. He couldn't do it. And I had to get into the hot seat. And I did my first episode. And then the rest was history. That first episode.
What was it? Take me back to that time.
So first, I knew because it was going to be a first few episodes, I need to bring someone that I know, so I'm more comfortable. So first episode was a good friend of mine, Dimitris, who worked at Visa as a head of design.
Nice.
The whole show was primarily about innovation and business, but primarily innovation and business. And but on the side, he's also a psychotherapist.
Oh, wow.
So he came in and basically he turned the first episode into a psychotherapy, asking me all of these tough questions.
He started asking you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, it's my first episode. Why are you doing this to me? And it was like a semi-comfortable, almost uncomfortable experience. But this was the first one, and then the second and the third and the fourth. And I got into the pace.
When did you get to the comfortable level that you started inviting people you didn't know?
I think it was after 3 or 4 episodes.
You realized, okay,
yeah, it's okay. Like you try it out. At the end of the day, it's a conversation that you just need to be prepared. The more prepared for the conversation you are, the more you know about the person, the easier it is to engage them in conversation. Like, you know, all of these things about me. It's easier just to pull something out and let the person talk about it.
Exactly.
That's why preparation is key in podcasting.
And it's also a lot of work goes in the back end, not just what people see, because a lot of people think, you know, 2 people are sitting down having a conversation. There is editing, there's, you know, like the stuff that 100%. You said. Yeah. So take me back. You said then at the 3rd and 4th episode, you started actually being the host and being comfortable in the hot seat while asking the questions, right?
Exactly. So that's how it started. And then over time, I got more comfortable and eventually recorded, you know, more than 100 episodes, met a lot of great people.
So from 2021 to now, 100
to 2021 to 2023, I think, while I was actively recording, I think in total recorded more than 200 episodes of my show in the studio. And then also we did a lot of shows on conferences. So we go to STEP conference, and then I recorded 20 episodes once on the STEP conference on GITEX. We went to Web Summit as well.
That's amazing. Great achievements. My question is, okay, so you have a web development business. Your friend has a media company. You guys decide to do podcasting to meet potential clients. Mm-hmm. How do you decide which clients are going to be on your show? And then number 2, how do you guarantee that those clients actually come to your show? You might have a wish list of 10 people, but only 2 people want to come to your show. What do you do then?
So we were choosing people based on our ideal customer buyer profile. So we knew who are the decision makers in the businesses that we ideally work with. So if it's Visa, then it's someone C-level or someone who is close to innovation. If it's Microsoft, it's maybe their startup hub or someone who is on their tech side. So based on those profiles and the decision makers in the businesses, we would reach out to them and invite them on the show. Now, obviously, when you have a brand new show, it's a bit challenging, although it was easier in 2021 than now. In 2021, I think we were one of the 3 shows that started like that. Now you have 300 probably that are doing pretty much the similar.
Do you think there are more people wanting to go on podcasts, or there are more podcasts than demand for actual people? I'm not talking about physical locations. I'm talking about shows.
Look, I think if you approach it from that angle of everyone has a story to tell and share, the opportunities are unlimited in the amount of people that you can bring on the show. I think still, although it feels overwhelming, the amount of shows that are out there, that's still not enough.
No.
That's still not enough.
You think it's still not enough?
It's still not enough because the volume is then driving the quality up, and then you end up with 30 shows that are actually producing high quality. But for that, you need volume, you need people practicing. The industry needs to live. So I think we're still in the early days. But practical advice, how do you get someone of a high profile on your show? And if you are not a big show, everything other than the show and the episode count that everyone is looking at needs to be super high professional. The way how you reach out to them, your website, your profile, your branding, your emails. You want to project an image of someone who is an institution that nobody even thinks to themselves or questions whether you actually have big following or subscribers and so on.
So you're saying positioning, the most important thing. Have a website, position clear, and
exactly.
Hunt the. I mean, look for those customers that are actually potential clients that you want to meet, right, and build those relationships with.
Yeah. So if you are a business that sells neon lighting, you and your ideal buyer are construction companies. You start to show that is bringing on board decision makers from those construction companies. It doesn't have to do anything with neon lighting.
Right.
It can be a construction show. But for you, it's important that you establish a connection with that person. And then through that relationship, you are going to close a deal selling that construction company neon lights. If you chose
the right person who's a C-level or a purchasing manager or basically a decision maker in that process.
Yeah. What I see don't work is that while people understand conceptually how this works, they don't stick to the customer profile rigorously, and they keep bringing on show people that might not be as relevant only because they can't necessarily lock in someone. So and then out of 10 episodes, they record 3 episodes with decision makers and the 7 episodes with people who can't actually bring them business. If you're doing it for that purpose, right?
Yeah, but what's more important? So I know, I've heard a lot that YouTube has an algorithm where you have to post on a weekly basis or monthly basis or whatever it is, you got to stick to it. Is it better to miss a show or to bring a guest that's not in your domain?
Miss a show.
Better to miss a show.
Not in your domain isn't relevant in every case.
Right.
It's relevant if you are doing it for purpose of bringing people of a certain caliber. But would miss a show or bring someone who is not relevant in general or is not a storyteller or doesn't have value to share, miss a show.
Miss a show.
Your guests are your show. It's not you. You are there to get the most out of the guests who are going to make your show successful. Because if you bring on the show someone who can't share value or doesn't know how to share value,
it's
a big difference. You might possess value that you can share, but you don't know how to share it.
Big problem.
So it's always about finding people who are efficient enough in expressing themselves and transferring that value to the audience. Because at the end of the day, everyone behind the camera is the one who is,
looking for value.
Value, yeah.
I have had so many businessmen that I've met with that are, actually that are good in business, but not necessarily in storytelling. I had a friend that went and started a podcast. 10 episodes in, he realizes I'm quitting. And I've even read online that statistics show that 99% of podcasts don't make it past the 20th episode.
For sure, yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. What do you think is the problem?
I think it's a misalignment in why are they doing it in the first place.
Why?
If you don't find truly your why, and then if you're mismeasuring the numbers or you're measuring the numbers that are not aligned with your why, can cause the fatigue. If you're not following something that you're truly passionate about and you don't walk out of this room energized just by the conversation that you had, regardless of anything else that might happen or the numbers,
you should want to meet the person.
Exactly. If you don't walk out of that room feeling like great that you just had a conversation, over time it can compound. And it can cause you to lose motivation to
not
keep coming back because the numbers won't happen overnight.
What do you say to that business leader out there that's saying, hey, I am great at business. I'll hire someone to be on the podcast with my guest.
As a host.
They
might be missing the biggest opportunity of their lives.
They might be missing the biggest opportunity in their life. What's one thing, that you think they shouldn't do?
Miss that opportunity.
They shouldn't.
For sure. I think host seat is one of the, I say, most expensive seats out there. Think about any host personality, celebrity in the world.
Yeah.
They became what they are because they were just the host. They were the person asking questions.
Wow.
Right.
You know, the guy from when I started thinking about Sam Altman, right? I saw that he had a VC. He started off asking questions to potential startups, right? And then later on, he had a mic and he worked for Y Combinator. And then you see him sitting and talking again on the mic. Next thing you see him on the mic interviewing Elon Musk, all these people. Next thing, CEO of OpenAI. Then you find out he doesn't even own the 6%. Later on, you find out that he's actually asking the board, give me the 6%. So you can see how he creates his own reality by being in the hot seat, interviewing relevant people who later become his investors also. So I think what you said about the most expensive, the highest value seat in the world is the host seat.
100%. I mean, it's that's the power of media and the perception people get by seeing you in the room with someone of influence,
even without watching the whole podcast.
Yeah, I think that in my show, 99% of people in my network didn't watch any episode almost at all, not until the end at all. But they kept seeing me on LinkedIn, especially at the time when it wasn't as busy. They kept seeing me with all of these people on screen, and they would immediately attribute some of their influence to me. And over time, if you see Vuk with 200 leaders in the room, I mean, whatever he's doing,
he must be doing something important.
He must be doing something. He knows them at least. So many people are reaching out to me now for help or introduction, assuming that I have relationships with all these people. And that's the power, really. Meeting them, maintaining that relationship, and having these people in your network is the biggest ROI on podcasting at this point, especially if you're doing it for business.
Especially, you once spoke about compounding happening not only for wealth, but also for relationships. Talk to me about that.
So it's the example of a good friend of mine, Paul Marsh, who was a guest in the room. Right, he wasn't the person that I was looking to meet, but
who came with the guest
that proceeded. And I met him. And I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what your goals are and what would you like to achieve in your life, most likely you'll get there through relationships, right?
What about that hard work, that finishing the exam or a PhD or getting that grade?
It's both are important. I'm not sure I want to say that that's not important, but at the end, relationships will get you a lot further away than other things.
And how does it work in a compounding way?
I'm not sure what was the concept that I was describing earlier, but your network grows exponentially. Through people that you meet other people, and that takes you far away.
Amazing, great answer. I was once in a meeting with a guy. Well, he was actually a business leader. He said podcasting is a waste of time. He said unless you have millions of views, unless you have millions of followers, you shouldn't be doing it. What do you say to that?
Well, it depends, right? It depends who is the person. It depends what they're doing with their time. Podcasting isn't universally the best thing that you can do in your life.
It's the best thing you can do.
No, it is not universally the best thing that you can do.
But if relationships are the most important
thing. I would say that everyone should give it a shot. For most common people today, podcasting might change their life because of the sheer amount of people that they're going to meet. There are probably people in the world who have much better mediums to build relationships, but they have other levers that they can pull to do something like that. They have other influence that is bringing relationships and that network to them. But for an average individual, I think podcasting is one of the most natural ways of building some meaningful relationships with other people. So I was asked this similar question in one of the previous podcasts, and someone was commenting that podcasting is not for everyone. That's what I thought as well. The podcasting is not for me.
Not for your industry.
3-4 years ago, I would never say that podcasting is something that I should do or I would like to do. It turned out to be the best thing that I ever did in my life.
The best thing you ever did in your life?
But at the time, right?
But how did you know it fit with your industry? Because a lot of people might be sitting down saying, this is not, it's good maybe for someone who's in media or someone who's in contracting, but not for me. I sell shoes, for example. Why should I get into podcasting?
Because there's a lot of people who are interested in hearing about shoes, right?
And how do you leverage the podcast to gain influence if you're someone that sells, for example, you have the shoes shop?
Sure. I mean, if you have a shoe shop, you have a brand that you want to build, right? How do you build brand? I mean, you build brand through content, through storytelling. How are you going to do that? Podcasting is one of the ways to do that. You can start a show that is interviewing the biggest brands out there in the shoe business. You start with Nike, Adidas, Puma, Louis Vuitton, and the others. There's a lot of different ways. Content is universal. It can be applied to pretty much anything. And these days, and given the way how we operate, content is probably one of the fastest ways to get your name out there, given the amount of time we're all spending on our phones, right? And watching YouTube. Content might be the fastest way to get your name out there.
So content, but what kind of content precisely? Short form or long form? A podcast is long form. So why are you saying podcasting? Why not reels, for example? Why podcasting?
Yeah, look, in our world, when we say podcast, podcasting is an understatement for what we are all producing these days. These are shows. These are shows, right. Full-fledged shows that are now being distributed in all sorts of different formats, right? You produce this episode, you're going to publish shorts, you're going to publish a full episode, you might be publishing some photos, etc. It's your pillar content that you're using to distribute everywhere else.
Right.
I think that this concept, as the time goes and where the future is taking us, is going to evolve a lot more. The concept, the formats, and the structure of these shows will evolve. It will go outside of the studios necessarily. It will be supplemented by the content that you're producing outside of the studio as well. And in future, we're going to see a lot more advanced formats that are looking a lot more like what we used to see on TV than what typically podcast is today.
What does that look like?
It's advanced format where you're recording a bit outside, around the city, and then you come into the studio. A lot more movements, a lot more people, more something closer to YouTube vlog type of thing than what a podcast would be. But it's a mix of both.
So more outdoor locations integrated,
possibly,
not just the
that's
studio.
what I'm predicting. Yeah, because the technology is advancing so fast. These days, what used to take you 10 people to produce, right? A full film crew and, and light and gaffer and then filmmaker and cinematographer and so on. Now you have a drone and a camera. And one person is producing the same quality of the footage 10 years ago you would need $100,000 for, right?
Exactly.
So I think we'll get there. As a concept, podcast is here to stay like radio or TV. It's not going anywhere. But because we all have so much access to technology these days, and the infrastructure for producing something like this is accessible, the quality of these shows will have to grow, which means
saying the quality needs to improve if you want to compete today.
Just when you think about the dynamics, right? If you have all of a sudden 2,000 podcasts who are competing where you used to have 10, this means that out of these 2,000, they will be looking how to be better, right? Which means that all of the work that we're putting in will be better and the output will be higher, right?
Exactly. And the creativity will be more.
Yeah, the preparation, the way how you structure content, etc. I think, especially here in the region, we're in the early days where we just got exposed to this whole industry.
Yeah.
And everyone is like, now, okay, what's going on? So now everyone is trying to navigate how do I produce a successful show. It's not about just walking into the studio anymore. It's about how do you produce a show that actually grows and is successful.
What is your advice for someone looking to produce a successful show?
I think primarily, first of all, find the purpose and the why are you doing it so that you have a longevity. It's a sprint, it's not a marathon. If you don't have a deeper meaning or a reason to do it, you might walk away from it too soon.
Okay.
Because it is going to take you time, that's for sure. Unless you're either a celebrity or you interview a lot of celebrities, which is a shortcut.
We are always going to be building relationships our whole life. You're saying if you choose the one that you actually want to meet, like your why, right?
I look at it as a therapy. You walk into the studio, you spend 2 hours with someone going very deep. You walk out, refreshed, you learn a lot more. And even if you don't publish it online, it was worth it, right?
Right.
That's my why. So I can continue doing it even if I'm not hitting high numbers necessarily. So that's the key ingredient. You need to have that why so that you can go for a long run. And how do you create content that scales and that grows is by understanding first the basics of listener journey and your average listener interaction with you. What are they looking for and how do you provide them that value? So you need to understand who are you serving this content for, and you need to keep producing that content, keeping value in mind.
Right.
Which is not an easy thing to do. Neither we have a formula, hey, this is exactly how you do it. But some key principles are that you need to keep value in mind. You need to put yourself in your listener's shoes.
Right.
Sometimes I ask podcasters, like, did you listen to your episode? Would you listen to your show?
For sure.
And then they're like, okay, now I get it. Like, I wouldn't listen to my own show.
Exactly. Like,
so yeah, it's all about that. That's what I feel.
I think long form takes over short form because of what I see happening. And I think the next few years, in my opinion, I see also leaders looking to get into podcasts just for the same reason, which is, there's so much misinformation out there.
Long form is raw and honest,
right?
And it's difficult to fake it. Short form, you can edit quickly, put something out there. That's why they've spent 40 hours on podcasts, because those podcast hosts build authority over large masses because of the value that they were providing them.
Exactly.
The trust that you have towards a short form TikTok influencer versus long form podcast host that you consumed for last 12 months, you spent 100 hours listening to someone.
Imagine.
Is a completely two different stories.
Right.
That's why I think they went for podcasting. Not necessarily, it's just purely audience dynamics and what the audience is consuming these days.
So you're saying more loyalty for the long form then?
100%. At the end of the day, we keep repeating this on the academy. At the end of the day, it's all common sense. There is no algorithm or secrets.
But sometimes common sense is not so common. What is that thing?
What is what thing?
Like, what is so common that you think is common? A lot of people might not know it.
So in sense of, for example, comparing short form content versus long form content. The dynamic of consumption of short form content is primarily for entertainment, virality, striking information, entertainment, etc. Sometimes short form is leading you to a long form. Sometimes short form is a standalone piece of content. But you watch it periodically, consume it mostly for fun.
Right.
Long form, by its nature, if someone tunes in to listen to something for 45 minutes to 60 minutes, it means they're really invested in that. They're investing 60 minutes of their life
completely
into a podcast, which means that the trust factor between the audience and that particular piece of content and medium is much higher than necessarily the short form. In that sense, when you think about it, you understand why the influence of a podcaster might be higher than the influence of a short form content creator in some domains, right? Especially in this type of
people
cases.
Think what Joe Rogan says is the truth.
Very often.
You know what I mean?
Very often.
They just take it as the truth. They wouldn't challenge what he's saying. He sits with so many different people. So
yeah.
I'm just saying, from a viewer's point of view, when I see, for example, Joe Rogan challenging someone, I think, yeah, this is how all the viewers think. He kind of represents the mass. When you have such a big following, you become very influential. From what I see, Joe Rogan, if he brings someone on his show, he gives them automatic credibility.
He does. And it's interesting. This question comes up often. You have the same person going to 5 different shows, repeating the same story.
Right.
The audience consumes the episode where they enjoy the host style the most. So if you had Sam Altman with Joe Rogan, and then Stephen Bartlett, and then what's the name of the it doesn't matter, Haberman Lab.
Yeah.
If you enjoy Joe Rogan, you're going to listen to Joe Rogan. You're not going to spend another 6 hours listening to these 3 other ones. But someone doesn't like Stephen Bartlett, for example.
Yeah.
They don't like his style.
No.
They're going to skip him in that. So the audience connects with the host, and they keep coming back because they like how host is asking questions, and it's almost like, oh, this is what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And when you can get into that like dynamic with the audience, this is when you get their trust. That's why we always say, be yourself. Don't try to impersonate other hosts. Don't try to be too much, whatever.
Yeah.
Just be yourself. Find yourself in the studio. Stay relaxed. And the audience will recognize that. Then part will be, okay, I love this guy. Part will be, I don't like this guy. But you're going to have the true following.
Exactly. You started as service-based business, which was the podcast studios, very famous in Dubai, Podsters and global. And then you moved to non-service-based Podix. I want you to talk to those investors out there that are stuck in the service-based model. How do they make that leap?
So it wasn't even necessarily a leap. It was a separate venture that was born out of deep understanding of the service business. So when we started Poddster, the key goal was, how do we productize the service? Because they didn't want to create really another service business that we just got out of. So we were like, how can we structure the business that is repeatedly going to deliver the same service without a lot of deviation and reduce the margin for error and the margin for customers feeling unsatisfied? So absolute standardization of the service, which would then allow us to, in a way, own the business without business owning us. It would be something that we are in control of.
And you don't need to put your time.
In my case, as an owner, yes.
And then how do you decide what are those services that you can package together to create a non-service-based business?
So it's any service that depends on custom delivery or creativity that needs to be put in every time, or any type of custom work, is not something that you can necessarily standardize, right? You can in a way, but it's tricky because then you depend on a lot of talent and you continuously need to find more people who are going to deliver that custom service. So in a way, we were trying to get away, but it's naturally pulling you in and you keep being, challenged. Right. But that was the idea. McDonald's of podcast studios, like walk in, click, 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 walk out. And we are playing in that sort of framework. But as we were building that up, we realized that we won't be able to operate something like this without a piece of software that is helping us streamline that whole experience, from booking the studio to purchasing other additional services, sharing files, etc., etc.
What were you doing before as a studio? And then how did the solution fix it for you?
So we were literally doing like what many other studios these days are doing, looking for a calendar, integrating with WordPress, integrating with HubSpot, integrating with something else, building some sort of Frankenstein. And then the whole experience for the customers is also not ideal because there is a lot of frictions. And the worst thing happens, they pick up the phone. Now you can look at that as an opportunity for you to build a relationship and sell more.
You mean the customer calling you?
Yeah. So what happens if the purchasing experience online is not seamless?
Right.
You pick up the phone. Right.
Hello, Vuk.
And people like to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
They would rather WhatsApp you than click 3 buttons. That's in our DNA, right? That's what I do. So what happens when they pick up the phone? When they pick up the phone, you are exposed to an opportunity and the risk. But the risk is much higher than the opportunity. The opportunity is you deliver an exceptional customer support, you upsell them additional services, they put the phone down happy and they come to the studio. But the risk is that your process is far away from standard that much, and that you depend on the skills of that person who picked up the phone, where the chances are that they're going to be even more.
And that's a service-based business, right?
That's a service-based business.
Then you take the common parts and then you try to create a system that's repeated.
Yeah.
Where you actually, so you were paying random vendors. How did you decide, let me standardize this and help studios?
So our idea initially for Poddster was, how can we create that process to be as seamless as possible? So we reduce friction, we reduce the number of calls we are getting, and we increase the number of upsells we are making.
So less calls, more upsells.
Exactly. So there are a few businesses that are influencing the way how I think about it. McDonald's is one. Everything is under an SOP. So everything that you do is a checklist. This is giving you deep understanding and insight of what's going on into the business. Everything is KPI driven, etc. But then you have low-cost airlines These are the guys who sell you the ticket for 3 seconds, but then they take you on the checkout. And there is another way. 25 seconds. You need to balance that.
Yeah.
But as a studio business, you're limited with real estate. And the only way to scale it is if you go down the route of added services, editing, post-production, clips, and so on.
Right.
But if you don't do that as a part of the checkout process, you're reducing a lot of chances that you're going to do it in the studio.
Editing and everything else.
Yeah, if you don't sell it online when they book the studio, 10x is the reduction of chances you're going to sell it when they come to the studio.
Because he's probably already coming with an editor, right?
By the design, when you come to the studio already, you need to edit the files, right?
Yeah. So you wouldn't have come there unless you knew someone already, or that the studio did it on their website and sign up.
Yeah, you already made your mind. So it's already too late. Then you will have a chance after a certain number of times they came to the studio.
It reminds me, the first time I came to Poddster, I came with an editor, Omar.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be listening to this. And hi, Omar. Thank you for introducing me to Poddster.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time I met you.
That's it, yeah.
So you're right. So I didn't come on the website. I came through his website and then he brought me to your studio. So then how does Poddix help?
So Poddix basically, first of all, helped us streamline that whole process and introduced everyone very intuitively to everything that we do and increased our added services from 10% to 30% of all of the bookings.
So you're selling to studios or to...
So no, this was Poddix was internal in an internal project in the first time. So the idea was we're going to build this for Poddster, and we built it and we operated Poddster on our software. This was a part of our internal operations. Then beginning of this year, we decided to actually take it out and give it its own life and offer Poddix to other studios as an all-in-one business management solution for podcast studio that is streamlining that whole process, helping you with upsells and streamlining your operations.
Okay, what if I'm sitting in Lebanon? One second. Sure. You're the podcast expert, right? You set up Poddsters, took over the game, number one. I'm sitting in Lebanon, far away from you or any country around. I have a location, a studio that looks good, but I don't know about getting the right software. I don't know about, how does Poddix help me?
So Poddix is your... at any given point, any type of studio to operate at a certain level and to turn it into a business, you need to subscribe to at least 5 to 10 tools. So one will be for booking and scheduling. You can go maybe for something simple, Calendly. Then you will need to have something for storage, Dropbox. Then you will need to have something for email marketing, MailChimp, newsletter. Then you will need something for project management. This is Monday.com, etc. Now, there's very few people out there, although there is technology, are capable to connect all of these applications in a seamless way so they all operate. While it's possible, it's very challenging and it's very expensive. In most cases, you are paying $50 for a tool, but you're actually using just 5% of their capabilities. So you are paying Frame.io $25 per seat, but you're using just a piece of that functionality that you need.
Right.
So what you end up doing is you're spending a lot of different subscriptions. You're paying a lot, you're not getting a seamless experience, and it's very fragmented. You're losing money because you're not upselling effectively, and you're losing money because you need to hire more people because of this process that is not streamlined. This is where Poddix comes in. So it's all-in-one tool that replaces most of these tools, streamlines operations a lot, and it's helping you sell your time and your services a lot more effectively. We're the only one in the world, so the podcast studio in its own is a small market. So there is maybe a few thousand studios around the world. So we are lucky that we built this on time. So we are now in the market as the only tool that does something like this, powered obviously by Poddster, which is one of the leading brands. It's very niche. So this is what's exciting for me. Super niche.
Your industry is niche. You're saying that, but there's studios popping up everywhere.
Feels like Dubai is at the moment has the highest number of studios per capita in the world.
That's
crazy.
That's crazy. I come from the restaurant business, and apparently Dubai has more restaurants per capita than Manhattan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm not surprised.
Dubai, it attracts, people here are spoiled for choices. If I'm looking for a podcast studio, I have so many. My question to you is, how do you stay on top? Is it with your software, or is there something different that you do in your studio that a customer cannot get that experience in a different studio? How do you stay different?
I'm not sure how do you do it in the restaurant business, but I'm also pretty sure it's not only about how well the steak was made, right? So it's similar in podcast studio business. It's not about the cameras and the setup necessarily.
Because that can be copied, right?
That can be copied. You can buy cameras. We're now sitting in a nice studio.
State of the art.
State of the art. Everything is great, but this is highly replicable. I think what's helping us a lot is the brand that we managed to build strategically from the get-go, the customer service and the general experience that you're having dealing with the brand.
When you say the brand, what is the logo or is it the people?
Brand is everything, right? Brand is how we make you feel. I think brand is how you make someone feel. How do you make someone trust you, rely on you? And this happens as a result of approaching a business strategically. So in this industry, a lot of businesses are looking at it as a type of passive type of income business or a real estate business.
People come in the studio, fill it up, and they go, right?
True, yeah. And that's fine. That can operate as a business, but that's not then a business that the big corporation will recognize to award a big project for producing a show for them. That's not a business that can launch an academy, etc., because of lack of authority. People then see you as a real estate business, which is good. If this is what you wanted. I think from the get-go, we approached it very systematically. So, there was always a clear marketing, brand, customer support. I mean, the roles that we have in our studio, probably not a lot of studios employees, not a lot of studios around the world have customer support, customer experience. So these are people whose job is to make you feel comfortable when you come into the studio. Now, the downside of that is that our overheads are so high now that we are almost struggling.
Yeah.
But this is building the power of brand.
Look, I like to bring guests that I usually tried their product, just because I realized a lot of the time I am also sharing my credibility with the person. So I actually see something with Poddster Studio. I see the opposite that all the other studios have. Poddster's is overbooked. It's hard for me to get a booking in your studio, which means you have too much business. How do you deal with that?
It's a good and bad problem to have, to be honest.
It's a good problem for you, but not so. I'm just saying, wow, man, you got I'm trying to book a studio. It takes me a month to get the studio I want with you. Why is that?
So I think that everything that we just described brought us to this place. It was definitely it helped that we were first mover. So we started this at the perfect timing. And that was again one of the lessons from before. Way too many times I started early or late. This was just on time. And then we executed, I think, flawlessly. I think the execution was key here. This brought us to a stage where we are overbooked. But the bad problem is because you couldn't come to the studio, right? When you move to another studio to do your session, if you couldn't book our studio, you are starting a certain journey with someone else.
Exactly.
Most creators find their own studio, they start and they stay there, right? So basically, the second studio in town was born on the back of us being fully booked.
Makes absolute sense.
And then it started growing. So it's good and bad. Navigating the demand and where is the ceiling of this industry is difficult. When I thought one will be enough, we were fully booked. And then I thought, okay, let's add two more. We were fully booked. And add two more, we were fully booked. But it's also a thin line, when you're overexposed. If you build too much facilities, you'll end up being, in
a downturn, yes.
In a downturn. So the season can be noticed now, and you need to be smart how you ride in that wave.
A lot of people that watch my show are business owners, small business owners, medium-sized business owners, or someone just in their 9-to-5 thinking to start a business. How important is podcasting with their business? Do they need to do it in their business headquarters, or do they need to rent a studio to start? How do you advise them?
They should do it wherever they feel comfortable. These days, as I said, the barrier to entry is so low and the access to technology is so low that you can literally do it anywhere you want. You can do it in your office, you can do it in the studio, you can do it at home. Definitely prioritize high quality. We like to say that, content is king, but you need to dress it like one. If you don't have an authority built already, Joe Rogan can take his phone out and record an episode. Everyone will listen.
I will watch it.
There you go. It's about when you're just getting started, the quality of the production is increasing the authority that you have and increasing the chances that someone will tune in. So whether they're doing it in their office, which is a good idea if you have nice offices and you want to show your brand, or you do it in the studio, which is convenient and easy access, just keep the quality high, because these days everyone is operating on a very high quality level. So
Vuk, you're operating on a very high quality level. That must mean the downside is you have a lot of stress. How do you manage your stress?
So I decompress and reduce my stress. Stress comes as a result of you becoming aware of certain issues that are bothering you and not having a plan for them, right?
When the thing you imagine and the reality, like you're somewhere and then the thing you imagine is so far away, there's a big variance, a delta. And you're saying if you don't have it written down, that plan to get there, then it causes stress.
Stress comes as a result of ambiguous solution to the problem that you're having.
The CEO of NVIDIA came out recently and he said that I was watching one of his old, he was sitting down in the classroom at one of the universities and he was saying that he understood entrepreneurship was for him because he likes to live in ambiguity.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
So, I don't know how I feel. It depends on the day. I guess ambiguity for some things is can be fun, but for some can be a cause of stress. If I have things that I need to deal with and I don't have a plan for them and they're bothering me, this is causing stress. So usually I just take a notepad, I write down a few things that are top of mind when it comes to stress. I write down what I'm going to do about it. The moment I write down what I'm going to do about it, I feel that I'm in control of. But this is probably just me because I like to be in control of things in a way. So when I feel that I am out of control, this is causing stress, and usually I decompress by just writing down the plan.
And then do you break it down into like timelines and stuff?
Timelines, and then I say, okay, on Monday I'm going to handle this, on Tuesday I'm going to handle this, I'm going to speak to this person. Then, okay, all of a sudden, all of these 6 things that are bothering me, have a plan in place, and it's okay. Going to get handled.
You're a married man with a child, right? How do you manage the stress of work? And a lot of entrepreneurs take their work home. How do you balance that? How do you know how do you switch off that entrepreneurship part and then become a family man?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. You'll have to speak to I'm getting to that point that soon I'll need to sit and talk to my wife to ask for forgiveness. But honestly, I'm not good with it. Luckily, I have a great wife. We have a newborn now, 5 months already, actually.
Wow!
And I'm just learning about that whole dynamic. But I'm definitely bringing work home a lot more than I should, and it's taking its toll. It's definitely taking its toll. So I really, honestly, don't have an answer to that. How do you?
It's the nightmare for every entrepreneur. Like, how do you switch it off, right? Sometimes you want to sleep, but you can't. How do you,
Spending time with friends, doing other things, working out. Workout for me doesn't work for me. If I go to gym on my own, it's the worst because then I have all the time to think.
Oh, no.
Unless it's a very hard workout.
What is that thing that gets you in the zone where you're there and you're not thinking about work?
Anything that is getting my focus away, any activity that is require my focus to be present. So if I'm cycling, for example, unless it's very tough, my mind is all over the place. It's just, spinning
the RPM
wheels.
got to be 140 plus.
That's it. But not even that. You lose yourself. But if you're playing basketball, you need to be focused on the ball and everyone around you. So playing basketball for an hour is going to take my focus away, for example. So I learned that these type of activities are helping me. But anything that is monotonous and where I'm on my own with myself, if I have things on my mind, they're going to stay there.
So it needs to be highly competitive, more competitive than the thing that you're thinking about, which is your business.
Probably, to ask from you to be focused.
Exactly. Otherwise, if it's like driving a car, which is with your subconscious, you're not really engaged, right? You're not going to not think about work. You're going to think about it with everything you're doing.
Definitely.
Unless it's full drive. So I can tell from what you're saying, you're a very competitive person. I'm now going to move you into the final stage of this meeting, into a very high-paced, rapid-fire round.
Oof.
Ask you a few questions. You can answer in one word or one line.
Oh, yeah.
What's the biggest misconception about podcasting?
It's not for everyone.
What's one book you swear by?
E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Michael Gerber. If you had to start over from the beginning, what's one thing you would do differently?
I would pick in service product area with a low maintenance cost, low competition, and high margins.
For the person that didn't get you.
So starting a service business in one of the most expensive cities in the world, which high competition with low margins, is not ideal. In both cases, it was a result of me at that point, in a way, having to start it. I didn't have much options in a way. But if you have an opportunity to start something from scratch, start a business, you have time on your plate, you're working, you have your 9 to 5, you're thinking about starting something new, use the opportunity to start something that is not going to require you to invest a ridiculous amount of money. It doesn't have a lot of competition, and the barrier to entry is high, and that the margins are high.
Give us an example of something.
If I had an example, I would start a business tomorrow. But something new, something revolutionary, something that is unlocking a certain value that you can dictate the margin, where the margins are high, 70, 80, 90%.
Copywriting, editing.
Possibly,
right?
Yeah.
You don't need high capital for those stuff.
Possibly, but anything that is a service is replicable, and eventually is going to bring in a lot of competition, and then the price wars. So it's something that is unlocking value, and something that is probably niche then that you can potentially monopolize. I don't want to say Poddster is that, but Poddster is potential for something like that, low competition, high margins. But this is what I see people making a mistake when they don't necessarily have to. They have an option to wait before they start something new. And because of that itch that they have to start a business, they start something that is easily commoditized, not necessarily high margins, relatively low margins, heavy maintenance, a lot of competition.
Just because they have to. Just because they have an itch to start something.
Yeah. So
you're saying better invest in something else, or find an idea that's working somewhere, and that might be a better idea.
Yeah, have all the time in the world to come up with the idea that is unbeatable. So
yeah.
But at the end, it's about the execution. That's true.
Yeah. If you weren't doing Poddster or Poddx, what would you be doing? And this is a one word or one sentence answer.
I would be either restoring Porsches.
Okay, interesting.
Or building houses.
Wow, building houses.
Anything that has some sort of a craft or a build. I love to build things.
Okay.
Both in business, but in real life as well. So as we are building our Poddster and Poddx, I'm actively getting myself exposed to these other industries, which is going to end up being my passion project and work at one point.
Cleaning up, fixing up a Porsche or a house.
Fixing up a Porsche or building houses or something like that.
Wow, you never know where the road takes you.
You never know. Hopefully it'll take me there. Building boats, yachts.
Look, Vuk, for someone that's listened to this interview and they want to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn is a good start. LinkedIn is a good start, and I'm happy to speak to anyone who is looking to start a show, share my experience, or talk business in general.
Okay. So, I've noticed that a lot of people, if they've made it this far in my conversation with you, 95% of them, they don't press the subscribe button. So my message to them is, guys, please subscribe so I can continue to meet really interesting people.
Subscribe and leave feedback. I think subscription is great sign that someone values what us as podcasters are doing. But leaving honest feedback on how it can be better is probably the biggest learning that we can get. So if you can leave some feedback on this episode, that would be great.
It's some constructive criticism, something we can take to actually improve. I like that. Thank you so much for your time, Vuk. Thank you for sharing this, all your years of experience in this niche, which I think is going to keep growing. I think what you said was very true about it being a niche, but I see more because I have a lot of friends that have businesses, and a lot of them are asking me about podcasting. So I think this show is definitely for them and everyone else that's interested. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed, and I hope I brought some value to the audience and to the show.
Thank you.